All right, guys, welcome back to the Command Your Brand show. I'm your host, Alex Latronico, brand ambassador of Command Your Brand. We help CEOs and founders to get their messages out onto top rated podcasts. Grab our new book, ranked the number one PR book on Amazon at bestpodcastbook.com. And a reminder before we get into today's conversation to comment on and like this video and smash the subscribe button if you want to command your brand through the power of podcasting. Now, here we have today, we have a very special guest today. I've had conversations with him in the past. I really very much enjoy working with him. And his name is Marcus Aurelius Anderson. And Marcus is a leadership catalyst to CEOs, founders, and high performing leaders, a professional keynote and TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and proud U.S. Army veteran. He trains executives and entrepreneurs to overcome and leverage adversity to achieve meaningful success in life and in business. While preparing to deploy, Marcus suffered a catastrophic spinal injury that left him paralyzed from the neck down and clinically dead twice on the operating table. Told he would never walk again, he reframed adversity as a gift. His best-selling book and TEDx talk, The Gift of Adversity, and his latest book, Acted Non Verba, deliver a powerful, action-driven framework for leading through adversity. And with that, I'd like to welcome Marcus today.
Alex, thank you for having me. We spoke before, but connecting the face and the voice is always great. So thank you for your time.
Yes, I agree. It's good to see you. So I was remembering our conversation. We were talking a lot about adversity, the overcoming of adversity, and I'd say that you and I already have a shared philosophy in that. That looking at adversity as something that you're running away from doesn't help you grow, but really taking a look at what's going on and being able to confront and overcome this adversity is where you have that growth potential really kicking in. Um, so I was just very curious for those who are unfamiliar with your work, what is acting on verba and how does that relate to day-to-day living?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Octa non verba is a Latin phrase that means actions, not words.
Mm,
So if you want to know what somebody truly believes, you don't listen to what they say, you observe their actions. And the same can be true for ourselves, right? If we're very honest, if we hold that mirror up, if we're reflecting with a lot of candor, we can see, hey, I say that I want this thing over here, but my actions are not congruent. And so, whether it be business, starting a podcast, writing a book, leading people, thinking about something, or even pontificating about it is enough. We will have to act on it. And frankly, a lot of the stuff that we think that we know to be true, until we take action on it, we really don't have any idea. So we can have the best business model or the best, you know, plan. But in the military, the first thing they teach you is no plan survives first contact once the bullets start flying. So until you take that first step and you truly commit, you're not even really going to be certain what the next step should be after that. So that's why taking this idea of being action driven, having this idea that no matter what you're doing, until you step into it, you're not going to really know. That's whenever we can really begin to start making a difference in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I mean, I can't tell you the countless times that I've got myself stuck in a trap of planning, and you're having all of these different scenarios, but until you go in and realize that, okay, you have a baseline, but everything that you've considered to occur, none of it occurred. And finally, I actually find myself more stopping myself from moving forward when I have that sudden change of plans because I was so prepared for so many scenarios that when they didn't occur, I actually found myself not making any forward progress.
Yeah, I've been with around companies. There was a company I spoke to in Europe, and they had spent $250,000 just on a pitch deck that they were trying to do. And I was like, I think you guys are more concerned about making a plan than actually executing on the plan. And that's a
Mhm.
lot of, and what happens, procrastination is built in, right? That's what people do. They want to do these other things to make them feel like they're accomplishing something, but they're really not accomplishing much. So hesitation is procrastination, or procrastination gives us this ability to hesitate, to stall instead of actually doing the thing that we most need to do. Stop planning, do the damn thing, look at what happened, reiterate, etc., until you succeed.
Right. Yeah, and it's very interesting for me. So, in terms of getting into this philosophy, could you, I guess, walk me through how it is that you came to discover this, the idea of acting on verba and the overcoming of adversity and, having adversity become something that motivates you versus it being a stopping point?
Yeah, absolutely. I started doing martial arts when I was a young man. I was about 11. And the great thing about martial arts is the philosophy is naturally baked into all of the lessons. So if they tell you to keep your hand up and you think you're doing it, and then you start dropping it and you get caught, it's not the instructor's fault. It's not the opponent's fault. It's because you're not following the principle. And lots of times we see the principles strip away from us when we're in the face of adversity. So for anyone that's listening to me, if you're a business owner, if you're a leader, if you're just trying to get better, understand that adversity is the indication that you're on the correct path. You should not be surprised when you find adversity. You should be surprised when you do not, because that
Mhm.
means you may not be on the correct path. So understanding that this is the thing that makes us get better. It's the ultimate form of accountability. So if I claim that I'm doing something and then I look at my results, the adversity in front of me will show me, hey, is this really what I'm willing to do? And it can be physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, financial. And the idea is to understand that adversity is not there to make you suffer. It's there to get your attention and say, hey, you paying attention? Because this is going to keep happening until you figure it out. And when we start
Mhm.
seeing it as that, and here's the other part, we can be philosophical about adversity and this idea of oxygen nonverbal all day, but it will still be difficult. If you're going through hardship, if you're going through a loss, if you're going through bankruptcy, those things are hard. But understanding that there is something on the other side of it, understanding that there is a tremendous data rich point in this adversity gives us something to look forward to, and it shows us there's something beyond this, that the world will continue to turn, the sun will rise tomorrow, even if it's not what we had in mind. But that allows us to remove expectation and just say, okay, what's really happening now? And what am I acting like I don't know? The answer that we seek is found in the adversity that we are avoiding.
Mhm. That definitely it makes perfect sense. It really it gets me thinking because even with my own personal philosophy in life, I don't believe that there's such a thing as like a static point, right? Things are either improving or getting worse. We could
Right.
very easily see this in muscle tissue, diets, and different things like that. But even when we look at like a business expended expansions, right? Even if we're making the same amount of money every single day, well, that quality of that dollar gets worse on a day to day basis, right? So unless you're constantly improving yourself, there's just no way to really show an actual expansion. So if you're not expanding, you are succumbing, and I always feel that way. Especially you hit it. I feel like you hit something really right on the head. Because even if we look at the expansion aspect of things, if you're not coming into adversity in life and everything is this comfortable place, of course, you're gonna have to be going into a deterioration mode because I don't know about you, but if I'm in a competition and I'm playing a game to win and I'm seeing a guy catching up to me, I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna put in a lot more effort to make sure that I get the first place in that race and not let the other guy take it. And if that's not adversity, I don't know what is. But if that guy isn't catching up to me, I don't see any competitions. And so, I feel like in a competitive environment, especially with leaders and things like this, it's if you're not running into problems, if everything is going beautifully, you're definitely not going in the right direction. I
Yeah,
feel
if the car's not shaking a little bit, you're probably not going fast enough, and
yeah.
you're probably not iterating quickly enough. And to your point, the physical manifestation of adversity is an adversary. And if you
Mhm,
think about it, an adversary is probably the most honest person you will ever meet in your life because they wear their hate on their sleeve. They're not going to sugarcoat anything. They're not going to pull any punches. They're coming for you.
mhm.
And as raw as that is, it's actually refreshing
Oh,
because
yeah.
at least they're being honest about it. At least you know this person is not trying to be your friend and then stab you in the back. They're coming for you. But if you can understand that and not get in your own way and also not let your ego get in the way and you can say, okay, well, let's see what I know. And
Mhm,
we're all going to get punched in the face by adversity in life. But the truth is, most of the time, it's not that hard of a punch. It's the surprise that shatters our illusion that actually hurts us more. And that's when we have
mhm,
to step back and say, okay, well, where else am I doing this? Where else am I thinking that I'm the exception to adversity or thinking that I don't have to have actions and not words? If you look at any part of your life, anytime that you've actually gotten better, it's because you did something difficult that you didn't want to do or didn't think you were able to do. And usually there is
mhm,
some form of adversity that will spur you in that direction. Because without it, for most of us, like we think that we can do it without something outside of us to push us. But the reality is, as human beings, we want to be efficient, which means lazy, and we want to hoard any sort of resources we can around us, which is to not really work very hard. And that's the
Mhm.
way that we're designed. But the goal is we have a brain and we're smart enough to override that, but we have to be willing, able, and committed to do that every single day.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's very interesting too because it really defines what I've learned in life of what happiness really is.
Mm.
Because having all of the resources and being in a very comfortable state, I don't know about you, but I get pretty bored very fast. I don't feel very happy in those situations. On the immediacy of when I received those things, and I know, wow, I don't have to stress out about all these different things. At that moment, I'm happy, but that happiness occurred because I overcame a barrier. And I saw that I was tested and I was able to overcome that with my own strengths or my own intelligence. And that is where I get my satisfaction. And constantly having these new different barriers and adversities that I'm overcoming and always planning to make sure that I have those things coming. That's where I find my consistent happiness to come from versus running away from it. Cause yeah, I've never been happy running away from a problem.
Now, anything that we do that is based on fear is never going to be the correct answer. And again, if we look at anybody that's successful, some of the most successful people in the world, they're looking for fulfillment now. And they
Mhm.
understand that the path to fulfillment is seeking out adversity on our own. Because the truth is, as you and I are speaking right now, adversity is en route towards us.
Mhm.
But if I can begin to prepare for that and give myself a fighting chance, now I'll have a prayer of being able to do that in the heat of adversity. But if I try to stay away from it, or if I believe, what I find a lot of people doing now is they'll read a book or they'll watch a YouTube or they'll even listen to a podcast, which I'm glad they're listening to this podcast. Having said that, just becoming familiar with something or hearing it once or twice does not mean that you've mastered it. It's
Mhm.
the furthest thing from the truth. This idea of familiarity means, oh, I've heard people talk about adversity. I'm going to be great in front of it. You're not going to know until you get there. And even when you do, you have to understand that there's going to be an additional level of it that you have to be willing to embrace. Everybody wants to be strong, everybody wants to be resilient, everybody wants to be successful, but you also have to embrace the mechanism that causes that. And that
Mhm.
friction, that mechanism is adversity. And I'm not saying that you have to face adversity all the time. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if you're trying to move the needle in the areas of your life that truly are going to cause that, to give that
Mhm.
fulfillment, you have to be willing to do that, because once you've done that enough times, now you can step into these other areas where you intentionally cultivate empty space, reflection, time with the family, time away, meditation, prayer, whatever that is for you.
Mhm.
That adversity will give you the contrast necessary to not only better appreciate it, but now better apply it whenever you have to face the adversary.
Yes. No, I fully agree. Even if we break it down into every aspect of life, it is that idea of going out there and really facing it and coming into that friction, getting that experience that I feel really gives a person an applicable know-how of how to accomplish that. And even if you imagine, a student who just finished learning everything there is about cars, until he goes in there and starts digging up the car and getting the oil in his hands. Yeah, sure, you might know all the theory behind it, but I'm telling you, until you look at that pipe, you're not gonna know what to do with the car because there are gonna
Right.
be very interesting scenarios that are just not covered in the book, and you won't know until you get in there and doing it. And applying that very much to dealing with adversity and overcoming these things, I think that is very much the defining factor and feature between what makes a leader happy with where he's at or staying in the current level that he's at, and a leader who really expands and conquers and dominates their field.
Absolutely. And the ones that I see that are the most successful are the ones that are seeing the small amount of progress they make consistently every day.
Mhm.
Of course, we get to a certain level of success, financial success, whatever that looks like for us. But once we're to that place and we're, as you were alluding to, satisfied, we have to still gamify this. We still have to say, well, what else could I do? Where else am I holding away from adversity? Maybe I'm crushing it in business and I'm killing it in the gym. Am I doing that with my wife? Am I doing that with my kids? Am I able to have that conversation and say, why, are we not engaged? Why are they not present? And lots of times the person we have to look at is us. Well, they're probably learning that because I'm teaching them that, or I've eluded that is what I want them to do. That's not what I want. I can't tell you how many people that I've coached that are worth all this money on paper, but yet their wife or their spouse is a stranger and their kids are on computers and they're not really paying attention to them because that's what they've been conditioned to do, because you've been working for 16 hours a day for the last 20 years trying to build something. and they feel like you don't have time for them.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, it's very important to look at all the different factors of life and succeed in all of those different factors. I do think that, there is a very much a general consensus to just go out and produce as much as you can in one direction. And although there is an admirable quality with that, you hit it right on the head. It would deteriorate the other aspects of life. And there is, an idea of work life balance, but not in terms of a stability, but in terms of always constantly challenge it to arise to the next level of intimacy, of success, of closeness. So yes, I fully right on the money. I love that viewpoint, and it's just something I like to apply for myself as much as I can in life.
And
You
and
know,
that's what we have to do. The idea is this understanding that there's never really balance per se, but there is always this skill set to where we can adapt well. So
mhm,
for example, if we're facing adversity to defend our family, I guarantee I don't care about balance at that moment.
right,
That's out the window. What matters right now is what's in front of me, this person or this adversary that's trying to hurt us. The same thing when we're experiencing, like we were talking about being present. If we're experiencing the most beautiful event in our life, a child being born, graduation, whatever it is, I hope you don't care about balance at that moment. I hope
right,
that you care about this moment and absorbing every aspect of it as you can. Because many times in business, we are conditioned to do what? Get to this thing, check the box, what's next? But in
mhm,
the process of doing that, we lose that presence. And even if we're driving hard and we're driving our team and we all get to this, year long, desired outcome or this quarterly goal, this KPI, whatever you want to insert in there, understand that if we can create presence along the way of doing that, we can have this simultaneous fulfillment and achievement. And now we're building and cultivating this environment that starts to do that on their own without us having to be the ones that are always driving or always stepping on people's necks or always saying, "Hey, I need you to push harder," even if they've done exactly what we asked them to do in the first place.
yeah. No, 100%, and it is something to be said to be able to really fully be there and appreciate what is happening because the email can always wait, right? The email is going to be there. It's not going anywhere. And by answering that email, all you're doing is destroying, not only ruining the experience for those around you, but you're ruining the experience for yourself.
Yeah,
And it's just,
nobody said on their gravestone that I wish I'd ordered my got to my emails faster. Nobody's ever gonna say that.
that's very true. That is very true. Now, going back on setbacks, right? Obviously, I do know that you work with a lot of CEOs and different leaders. How, I guess, how is it that you help coach them into turning setbacks from a loss of momentum, but really helping them to like move forward and really conquer those goals without any of these setbacks?
Yeah, the person that we are most qualified to help is the person that we used to be. So, being on an operating table at 40 well, being in a recovery bed after at 40 years old, after being paralyzed from the neck down, after looking at my life and saying, "Why the hell was I hesitating so much? Why is all this information useless now because I didn't act on it?" All these things that I'm trying to do now are based on the idea that I would pat myself on the back for thinking that I was smart or thinking that philosophically or conceptually something made sense. But again, until you're actually doing it and until you're actually I was accumulating knowledge thinking that that was the answer, but the idea is to apply the wisdom that you've learned. And so when I'm talking to a CEO and I see them in 2020 when everything is going sideways, or when I see them when they're actually being they're getting private equity now, but now they're seeing all these changes that they didn't really sign up for. These are the ways that they can actually look at this and say, what is adversity showing me? What is the pressure? What is this crack revealing in us? And then how are we going to adapt to it? And I'm not trying to be just like, pie in the sky kind of idea. I'm saying things like, are we the ones that are slowing people down? Are we the bottleneck? Are we the one that are telling them we want you to do these core values that we have on the wall, but yet whenever we lead, we don't have trust. The people around us don't communicate, and the people don't even believe anything we're saying simply because we're saying one thing and doing another. So understanding that most of the time, whatever we have that's within us that we haven't overcome, everybody wants to scale their business, right? But they will also scale those inefficiencies. They will also scale that adversity. And sometimes it will outscale everything else that they're doing. And that's when they start to die slowly and they can't even see it. So the question I ask them lots of times is 2 years from now when your business failed, what happened?
Mm,
because by the time they because there's usually something that comes to mind for them, and that's the thing that they need to get in front of now, because it takes 2 years before that thing manifests, and when it manifests at scale, again, it could take out everything else that's going on, especially if we have undulations in the world, which we do all the time financially. So
right.
understanding that and anticipating that and expecting that keeps us ahead of it. Because if I can look at that problem now, I don't have to look at it 2 years from now. I can start to solve that problem now. And it's easier to try to solve it now when it's smaller than 2 years from now when I have to lay off half the company and close half of my businesses because I cannot make overhead.
Right. No, that completely makes sense. Yeah. Handling it when it's smaller is always going to be an easier method.
Yeah, Lao
Waiting
Tzu.
for the problem, waiting for that problem to be a gigantic monster is that'll definitely get a few quivers in your knees.
Absolutely.
Now, with everything that we're talking about today, I know that there's obviously a lot of key nuggets that we like to drop on and really incentivize people to get into action. So, I guess if you had like an advice, if somebody's listening to the podcast today and they're feeling like they're stuck in their own adversity,
Mm.
what would be the first step that you would tell them to take in order to start overcoming that?
Yeah, there's the first thing is you have to actually acknowledge that it's there and stop ignoring it. Um, Kubler-Ross is a psychologist, and she talked about these 5 stages of grief that we have to go through: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. What happens is we have a lot of these unclosed loops going on in our lives all the time, and it's almost like a computer that has a bunch of unclosed tabs, right? But the problem is it can create this bias, it can create this residual feeling of lack of fulfillment, of depression. So if we're in denial, that makes us feel very unfocused, and that will spread. If we're in the second stage, anger, we're going to feel that anger spread onto everything, even though we should be happy because we're lucky. We have a healthy family, we have a great business. But what we're doing is we're not allowing these things to come to their completion. So just like a cold, just like anything, you have to allow it to run through you and accept it. Let go of what you think it should be. Let go of if you were a good person or not. Let go if this is fair or not, because it doesn't matter. Adversity doesn't care about your opinion. It just doesn't. And once you realize that, and now you can start accepting it and say, okay, well, I'm here now. It doesn't matter if I did the right thing or if I got screwed over in business. I'm here now. What am I going to do next? And most of the time, the next steps are not going to be a perfect bow on the top of it and everything goes away. It's usually this idea of saying, listen, of these 3 crappy ideas or 3 crappy like options I have, this is the one that I can live with. And now we understand those trade-offs, and eventually we can level up into a place, but there's very few times is there a direct path, and anybody that says that there is probably trying to sell you something, so be aware of that too.
Right. That makes sense. It's great because, I'm going to bring up, when we were talking originally on the phone,
Mm.
at the end of our call, you were mentioning to me, you would ask me about something that I was running into in life. And I wanted to give you an update on that while we're here.
Yes, please.
Because yeah, it was a very enlightening thing. So when we were talking, you had asked me one of the things I was running into, and it was I wasn't sure of the correct usage of the emotion of anger as it comes to being a leader.
Mm,
And I had mentioned it's because I've had received it in an incorrect way so many times that I would just try to stop myself from allowing that to occur because I don't want my team to feel that anger, right? Because I'll be, for whatever reasons, maybe it's the idea that, a leader shouldn't be angry or, whatever, right? There's a million and one reasons why I probably had that thought process. But you had mentioned something very interesting for me, which was very funny because as soon as you said it to me, it made sense because I went, oh, yeah, no, that lines up already with a lot of my philosophy about other things in life. And you had told me, well, okay, well, let's take a look at that emotion, right? Does it have a surface? Does it have a tool? And really looking at it and going, that's true. Anger itself has its own applicabilities. And there are situations and scenarios where it is the correct emotion to have. So trying to run away from it and trying to avoid it. And I feel like this philosophy spills over to everything else. Because I was resisting that anger, I was angry all the time
yes.
because I didn't have an outlet for it to go away. Or I wasn't able to really analyze and see when it's correct, when it's not correct. So it would just sit there and sit there and sit there. And all of a sudden, I'm just angry all the time, even though there's no reason for me to be angry. So I started really taking a look at that. And I started letting myself just communicate a bit more freely. And I did let my team know in advance, hey, there might be times where I might get a little bit angry, just apologizing in advance, and I will make sure to correct that if it comes across incorrectly. And very funnily enough, I don't think I've had many experiences with anger flaring up at all since that conversation. It was just very interesting.
First of all, congratulations, and thank you for taking the advice. I can't tell you how many people have asked me for advice, and then I give it to them, and then you talk to them, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm in the same place." It's like, well, you're getting the same results for the same reason. But again, anger is a gift. It's a signal. It's not superfluous. There's no emotion that you will ever experience that is not doesn't serve a purpose, like you were pointing out. And now I understand in a lot of philosophies, they will say, don't fall into anger and all this other stuff. But if you notice, they won't put their fingers in their ears and go la 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 and act like it's not there because they know that it is very real. And the truth
Mhm,
is, if we look at people throughout history that have been consumed by anger, there are just as many other people that have leveraged it, use it as a catalyst if they go in the right place. So I have to allow that anger. I have to respect that it's there. I have to allow it to go through me. It doesn't mean I have to direct it to anybody, but I allow it to, I process the entire emotion. And then I say to myself, okay, so this pen is a tool. I don't blame the pen if I write the wrong answer or if I have bad penmanship. That's me. Anger
mhm,
is the same way. Anger is the tool, but I am the one that utilizes it. So if I can put the anger down, the tool down, step away, take a breath, and look at what's going on everywhere. I look at my entire team, I look at my business, I look at whatever's going on, and I say, okay, where do I need to utilize this skill set,
mhm,
anger? How do I utilize it appropriately to the correct degree and at the appropriate time? So back to that idea, if I'm trying to defend my family and somebody's coming at us, I don't care about balance. As a matter of fact, I'm going to lean into that anger because I'm going to utilize it to the fullest because that's what it's there for. Now,
mhm,
when it's inappropriate, it doesn't make any sense to do that. And if I am not the master of my emotions, and I don't always do it because I'm a human being and I fail, but if
mhm.
I'm at least aware of it, it keeps me from being victimized by it over and over again. But just like you pointed out, when I try to act like it's not there or I turn it into the boogeyman, I actually give it more gravity. And now I am not pushing that anger. It's actually pulling me.
Mhm.
It's pulling me from my rational thought and it's allowing me to be emotional. And a lot of times people like that feeling of righteous indignation and anger. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying, listen, at this moment, this is the thing that I can utilize to help me acquire this goal or to help these people or to get what I need to do in my mission. But I have to be able to set it down when it's unnecessary. And frankly, it's almost like an 80-20 split because anger is so powerful and condensed. I only need a small amount of it.
That's right.
And I also need to make sure that I don't become intoxicated by the emotion of it. So I'm
Yeah.
so glad that that worked for you, and I'm glad that you utilize it because it sounds like you're already getting some incredible returns on investment. So congratulations. Good work on
Oh,
that, Alex.
thank you, and thank you for that. It's very interesting, and to lead into that consumption of anger, I do it's very real to me that I think it's the avoidance of that anger that really led somebody to be fully consumed by that anger when they finally could not control it anymore. And that is where I believe that consumption comes from. Because, it's interesting when I analyze that emotion of anger, it's what is anger? Well, it's to destroy something in front of me. That's essentially what that answer is for. The anger is the correct thing. So if I need to destroy something, that's going to be the proper emotion for me to feel. Much like if somebody's coming into my house to harm my family, I'm going to destroy that from existing, right? I don't
Absolutely.
want somebody coming in and hurting them. So even when I apply it to an organizational point or handling a team, it's, well, why am I angry? Well, I'm angry because the certain production that I was looking to attain or the goals that we were looking to get did not occur. So the anger is not directed necessarily at anybody on the team, unless, if we had somebody who was like purposely sabotaging it, that's a different conversation.
Sure.
But generally speaking, the guys are trying to work it out, but we weren't able to make that plan for whatever reason. And so the anger is more at the concept of not getting that plan actually arrived at versus my teammates. And so then I have to take a step back and go, well, I'm in charge of organizing things. So if they weren't able to achieve that product, where's my organizational skills? What system do I have in place that I need to destroy and put in a new system where they can actually get that product?
That's it. How have I been complicit in allowing this anger to stop my team from doing what I claim that I want them to do?
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah, so it was very, very helpful, and I wanted to just share that with you because,
Thank you.
yeah, I very much appreciated it.
Well, I'm glad that you're
And
utilizing it. I'm glad that it's serving you.
of course, yeah. And now with that, I do know that you have your book and the gift of adversity, and it definitely resonates with a lot of people. But I was wondering, like, as the author who wrote the book, what would be the one key lesson that you would hope that anybody who has come across that book or has read that book really takes away from it?
We've talked about some of them. I mean, this idea that adversity is a gift because it strips away everything that we're not and just reveals who we really are. It
Mhm,
doesn't care about what we desire. It doesn't care about our preferences. I would say that this understanding that adversity doesn't guard anything that is not worthy of acquiring. So we as human beings, we don't respect something unless we have to pay for it in some way. So if we didn't bleed for it or sweat for it or give money for it, we don't respect it. And the thing is, almost like what we were talking about, Alex, you took that advice and you felt the value in it, the quality in it, and you applied it. But if I'd have given you that advice and it was $1 million piece of advice and you didn't apply it, I can only meet you where you are, right? So the
mhm,
idea is to understand that this idea of adversity, we have to continually just make peace with it. Once we understand that adversity never gets easier, ironically, it makes accepting adversity easier because we know this is par for the course. We know we're going to go to work and there's going to be a fire that needs to be put out or whatever it is. But when we understand this is just natural, this is not the end of the world. Again, the world will not stop turning if I have to deal with this or if I have to have a direct conversation with somebody, then that helps me do it to the best of my capacity. And understanding that adversity is the indication that you're on the correct path,
mhm,
that's what you should be doing. If the path in front of you looks clear and simple, it's probably not your path. It's probably somebody else's. And then I said,
mhm.
and then I said,
That makes sense. I like that very much. Well, I definitely recommend a lot of people to go ahead and grab that book. I know I'm getting my own copy and going and read it through from beginning to end
absolutely. Yeah,
because I
that's
just
the first one. Yeah. The first
perfect.
one's there. And then the second one will be out pretty soon as well. And the idea was so the first book I wrote, I didn't know how to write a book. I was given a TEDx talk and I was given an opportunity. Now I've literally been teaching all over the world. I've gone everywhere and I've taught to military, nonprofits, you know, huge companies. And these answers, these principles are universal. And so that's why we follow principles and not people, because people are fallible and we all mess up. But the principle is what can lead us. And it's something that is unchanging. It's something that
Mhm,
is resolute. And that's the importance of it. So having the second book, Octa Non Verba, the idea is to take the same components from my story, but now show them after 8 years of helping other people, of my experience, of what I still didn't teach very well in the first book. Because when you speak enough times and you're doing Q&A, people will ask you questions. And
mhm,
that's how I learn, right? Because if they're all asking the same question, then that shows me, okay, I didn't address this skillfully in the book, or I didn't speak well on it in my keynote, or I didn't teach on it. And that means I'm not a very good teacher. My goal is to
mhm,
give them as much pragmatic empathy and pragmatic wisdom as I possibly can in that moment so that they can apply it. And just like you, these are just tools. So I will give it to them and they will get out of it what they put into it. But again, this idea of being radically honest with who they are and accepting what's going on, that's where most people need to begin, and that's where I had to begin. I had to have my entire existence ripped away from me, every physical capacity taken away from me, and be paralyzed from the neck down and be told that's what was going to be my life to make me actually take this stuff seriously. My goal is
mhm.
for people that are listening to our interview right now to not have to do that. And if they can even take an iota of what we've talked about now and apply it, they will see huge changes in their life. And usually once you do that in one area, you go, man, where else am I doing this? When we
Yeah.
face adversity, three things happen. The first thing is we realize it wasn't as bad as we thought it would be, right? Because we build it
Mhm.
up in our head. Second of all, we start going, man, why did I wait so long? And then third, where else am I doing this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's very, very real to me. I mean, even if we go back just as simple when we were a teenager and we had our first love and we wanted to go talk to talk to the girl that we loved, right?
Mhm.
So everybody's heart was pounding, hands were sweating. Then you go into the conversation, and win or lose, you realize, that wasn't that hard of a conversation to have.
Yes,
And it's
absolutely.
it's just it's very interesting just applying that to everything in life. It's just it just fascinates me. At the end of the day, it's always very simple. It's just pushing yourself through that simplicity is what makes it so hard. And so, we have to imagine a very complex boogeyman to
Yes.
explain why it is that we just don't pick up the phone, right?
Mhm.
So it's very fascinating. Now,
Yeah,
you were
it's
mentioning oh, sorry.
I was gonna say it's very hard for us to acknowledge the fact that maybe it's as simple as me just picking up the phone, or maybe it's as simple as me being the one that maybe took this the wrong way. If I step back and I put myself in the other person's shoes and I say, "Is it possible that maybe, just maybe, I didn't know exactly what they were saying when they said that, or their intention was different than what I took it as, or because I was angry, now everything that they said felt like a pushback against my ego," right?
Mhm.
And when we do that, it helps us clean the slate, it helps us get back to neutral. So this elevated emotion or this depressed emotion, because we go both directions, right? There's times whenever we have a great life and we're like, yeah, but this sucks. It's like, come on, you can't always do that. And then the same way where you can't have this like elevated emotion all the time of artificial positivity to walk you into something that doesn't really serve you. The idea
Mhm.
is to take a breath, get back to neutral, look at what's really happening, put the anger down or whatever emotion is intoxicating us for that moment, figure out where we need to go, and now pick up the appropriate tool to the appropriate degree at the appropriate time, and then push
Right.
forward.
Yeah,
And then I say,
definitely. And it reminds me of the your TEDx talk that you did. I was listening to it, and there was one thing that really stuck out to me that I thought was very interesting because, as we're living our lives and dealing with our own adversities and our own existences, we get to a certain level of comfort. We have a very certain level of or a rhythm of operating. And, you know, we don't realize that other people have different kinds of adversity. So we don't really understand and experience how well we truly are in life, right? I mean, when did we start having hot showers on every single house, for example, right?
yeah,
Or, I don't wake up in the morning and worry about, oh, is there a missile flying over my head? Did the power explode because of a terrorist attack? I can wake up and go, oh, well, what am I going to eat? I mean, the idea that I even have a choice of what I'm going to eat when I wake up is its own fascinating thing that I take take for granted without really realizing it. So, the next time we're at a restaurant, we order a salad without tomatoes and we see the tomatoes. Maybe, just maybe we look, maybe I can just move the tomato to the side instead of getting angry at the tomato. Because I at least had the ability to eat a tomato if I wanted to.
it's a privilege, right?
Oh, yes. And it
It's a
really does
privilege.
increase the overall gratitude of life itself. To just remember, yes, things could be better. Yes, okay, yes, I might have a bunch of debt that I'm worried about. Yes, I don't know how to implement this strategy. Or, oh my gosh, how am I going to get payroll to my team this month?
Mhm.
But, we look at these problems. It's a very interesting thing because, at the end of the day,
And then I say, and then I say,
life is still beautiful that in the way that I'm even able to experience that friction. And that in itself is already its own beauty to me.
absolutely. That's where we find what we really believe in, what we really value. Again, nobody's going to have on their tombstone. I wish I would have answered those emails faster. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
Find what's important in your life, and then build your life around defending, cultivating, and loving those things. And that will help you find the amount of adversity that we can endure on our own is significant, but the amount
Mhm.
of adversity that we can actually burden for others, ourselves with, it's un there's no limit to that. And that's why we have to find people, a purpose, something that drives us. Because when we have something that is more powerful than the adversity that we face, then all the adversity that we face becomes irrelevant once we succeed. And we have to begin with that idea in mind. If we're sitting here and it's difficult, sure, it's going to be difficult, but it's always going to be difficult if we're trying to be better. And the truth is, I would rather choose the discomfort of adversity that's something that makes me a better person to help other people than just trying to say, well, I'm trying to make, you know, ends meet in this crappy apartment. That's the adversity
Mhm.
I'm facing. It's always going to be there. Choose the adversity that you are willing to fight for, willing to get up for every day, and then surround yourself with people that will walk with you in that. When we lead people correctly, you're talking about leadership. If I lead my team properly on the times when I'm not really feeling it or when I'm not actually able to really click in, I see them and they drag me along. They
Mhm.
become the tide that rises the boats. And so vicariously, my own leadership saves me in those times when I don't feel like I can keep going because they do. They believe in the
Yeah,
mission. They remind me. Their actions, not words, tell me this is what I need to be doing. And then I get back up and I keep moving forward.
that's quite poetic. I like that. And it's very true. It's very true. Now, I do have this question because obviously I love your philosophy. It resonates a lot with how I like to see the world around me. And obviously, you do help a lot of different people. You coach a lot of business leaders and CEOs. So I would just have a question, right? In this world where we have all of these different philosophies, how to handle things, and different coaches that we should work with, w- why should somebody choose you specifically over another coach?
Absolutely. I think I'm uniquely qualified to teach what I do and coach what I do simply because of my past experiences between doing martial arts for a long time, between the military, which has good and bad leadership, and then facing this adversity of being, flat lying on the table a couple of times and being paralyzed. It helps me see the importance of execution. It helps me see, like I said, when I've been in that place and I see that CEO hesitating, like you were describing before, where they're like, well, I have all these shiny objects and I have all these options. No, we're going to narrow it down to three. Which of these three can you live with? Which of these two do you like more than that? And which are you willing to execute on right now? And then I give them a metric, I give them a deadline, and I push them in a positive way because I want them to want to elevate. But most of the time, the answer that we're trying to get to again has adversity in front of it. And then again, by seeing those leaders, ironically, even $100 million companies, once you look under the hood, the problems they run into are the same, and they're
Mhm.
usually based on that leader or the C-suite executives that they have. So you have that leader who has a maybe a tumultuous experience with money growing up, and now they have a salesperson and they have a CFO. They're going to kind of manifest that emotion towards them. So if they think that the only way that they can win is if they cut people's heads off and have this very like cutthroat mentality, they will hire a sales manager like that, but then
Mhm.
they're going to have a lot of friction. It's going to be adversarial with them. And then if they have a CFO who's constantly telling them about the purse strings and how we need to cut back on this and this is costing money, again, they're manifesting those things in their business at scale. And now instead of being able to actually step back and trust these people and say, listen, I'm paying you a lot of money. I need to just let you do your job. And if I'm the CEO, I shouldn't be able to micromanage or put my nose in everybody else's business. I should be able to step back and say, tell me what happened this month. Tell me what happened this week. Tell me what's going on here. Tell me where I want to go and how you can help me get there, as opposed to trying to give me reasons to not be able to do it.
Right.
And that's what I find a lot of. And also, I'm from the outside, so I can tell people something that maybe they don't want to hear. And it's not always like raising my voice and like using the knife hand. Sometimes it's saying, "So what if the most important thing you should be doing right now is resting with your family instead of trying to push to this next artificial metric that you've designed at the first of 2026?"
Mhm.
And if they don't like me, then they can fire me and I walk away.
Right.
And I can also ask I do 360 evals with the CEO. So I talk to all of his leaders. Hey, where's he doing well? Hey, where is she not doing well? Hey, where can she get better? What does she do better than other people? What is one thing that you see in this leader that they don't? And how is that negatively impacting your performance or the team's performance? Just those questions alone are going to give them so much information that they can actually begin to execute on. And then we see the patterns and then we get in front of it and then we change it. But it takes time. And again, we have to be willing to listen. Everybody that I start with, I ask them, first, are you humble? And they'll say yes.
Mhm.
And then I push into that humility and see what their ego does. And then I also ask them if they're coachable. Being coachable and executing are different. So
Mhm.
again, you were coachable when we spoke, but you executed on it, which is more important than any coaching. because I can, again, give you all the information in the world. If you don't walk the walk, I can give you the blueprint and I can be on the sidelines with you, but you have to be the one that walks it. And you have to be the one that gets up and does it every single day. And then also giving yourself the ability to say, you know what, I failed over here, not beat yourself up, take a breath and say, okay, I'm going to try not to do that, right? The mistakes that we repeat are the ones that continually leak from us. So there's only two ways to deal with one form of adversity, correctly or again. And if we don't do that, if we don't face it and we don't own up to the fact that we're the ones that did this or that we're allowing other people to continually do it, then we're going to continually get the same responses and the same reactions.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I really, really like that answer. It makes sense to me. If I was my own CEO of a company, I would 100 be calling you because, just from our small conversation alone, I already got immense benefits from it. So
Thank
I
you.
really, I really hope that you can continue to change the lives that you are changing. And I just know innately, just on a purely philosophical level, you're right on the money with what you're doing.
Well,
So with
thank you,
that said,
Alex.
yeah. And with that said, where should somebody go to if they wanted to reach out to you and see how they can form a relationship with you and have you help them with their goals?
Absolutely. They can go to marcusaureliusanderson.com. You can send an email there about coaching, inquiries or what have you. If you want to, the TED Talk is free. You can find The Gift of Adversity on YouTube. Just put in Marcus Aurelius Anderson, The Gift of Adversity. The book is on Amazon. You can get that there. Also, my Octa Nonverba podcast, octanonverba.com, this idea
Mhm.
of going through, and it has a lot of this philosophy kind of built into it, and there's a lot of free resources there, so you can find me kind of anywhere that you're looking, but the goal is to get people to take action. And so if you're here listening to my voice right now and you're wondering if you should reach out, marcusaureliusanderson.com.
Perfect. Awesome. Great. Very much. I very much enjoyed the time I spent here with you today.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Thank you. And with that, I just wanted to send a reminder for everybody here watch today's episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure that you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you can stay in tune for more future episodes.